Jacqui, let's come to you because you're also involved in an institute, and so you have that sort of perspective from that side of things. Feel free to share some thoughts with us. And you're still on mute. There.
Yeah, no, I'm off mute now. I'm behaving with the dogs out of the room. And apologies again for those that heard me shout quiet to my dogs just before we commenced. Nancy, I find that really interesting because it really correlates with a lot of the same aspects of, I think, a lot of what we grapple with within the United Kingdom particularly. But I think also about the words of profession and professionalisation and what does that actually mean. So I'll just give you a bit of an overview about my role and the EPS, the Emergency Planning Society, a bit about the work that we've been doing, but actually how it really links to a lot of what Nancy has outlined. So I won't repeat that, but really some of the challenges that we've had. And I think, David, you're absolutely right in terms of, I think, what the pandemic has exposed, but I think it's also provided the real platform for opportunity for change. And I think if we don't grasp that now, then, you know, I think we're failing all of our people who work with us, for us, and more importantly, the communities that we serve, to be able to keep them safe and do the things that we need to do. So a wee bit about the Emergency Planning Society. Was created a long time ago, without giving you the boring history, but the EPS was created in '93 to promote effective emergency planning and management. Came from before around a lot of Cold War and civil defence work as well, and moving us on to where we are now with the introduction of legislation and implementation of the Civil Contingencies Act in particular, which was pretty groundbreaking in 2004-05 at the time. Given that really we'd been working to Cold War legislation really up until that point. I think what's important to remember is that subsequently the operating landscape for emergency management, which really broadens out into that whole world of hazard and threats and security and everything else. So it's not one-dimensional, it's really complex. And it's changed extensively. I think we live in a world that's complex, it's interdependent, and we have so many dynamic risks now that increase those range of threats and hazards, and none more so than the impact, as I've said, of the pandemic. I think the ongoing risks from COVID remain prevalent. I think our expectations of living and continuing to respond, aside to how we think we will reset and recover from this, are really significant. I think how we reimagine our situation, critical as it is just now, is a real challenge, and I think that really links to the professionalisation and the professionalism that we really need to consider. I think, David, your point there about being a professional and delivering professionally is very different from having the profession. And I think for emergency management and the resilience practice, we are still lacking the fact that we do not have the recognised profession within that context. And I think that's something that we really absolutely need to consider. So moving on, I'm chair of the Emergency Planning Society of the board and our membership. We have predominantly members across the UK, but we also have an international sector to that. Not as big as we would want it to be at this point in time, but we do have an international branch. Our vision is really about being the leading voice of the resilience profession, and we're there really to support our members, all of whom who work within the resilience profession, right across a number of different spectrums, from whether you're in public service, private, third sector, utilities, NHS, emergency services. We have members from all of those areas. So the key things that we really want to develop are developing and raising professional standards and competence through the framework of practice, delivery on a code of ethics and a code of conduct, so that really drives the right behaviours. Looking at the learning pathway, and I think this is where we've got a lot of lacking at the moment, is that there's lots of courses out there, lots of masters, lots of academic courses, lots of college courses, but actually, what is the learning that we think people need to have to be able to come into the profession? Supporting our members' professional development, so the continuous element of that. And then obviously, similar to Nancy, we produced a professional magazine, links to a journal. We've got partnerships with academic partners and journals, learning and networking through different means, and so it goes on. And collaboration is a huge part of what we do. We've got activities that are based around 5 key themes, and the one that I really want to concentrate on just for the next few minutes is, of course, about the professional standards and learning. And I think we've been doing a lot of work over the last year, some of that being impacted by COVID, obviously, but really talking through the current competence framework that we have is now dated. And that was put in place just as the Civil Contingencies Act came in within the UK. I think it served us well, but I think now when I look at that, I think it doesn't go far enough. And the whole aspect of what we require to look at is really what I said earlier. So it's setting a set of professional standards for the resilience professional, which has to come from us being a profession. And that, as I've said, is about having the code of professional conduct, the learning pathway. So the learning pathway detailing right from if you're a student or a new person, new entry, graduate coming into the profession, what do I need to do, right the way through to if I'm experienced, what does that look like for me? The whole thing around our competence and what does competence look like, and the continuous professional development. I think the competence and the CPD are very much interlinked. I think we also have challenges in terms of who's delivering the level of competence that's required and how have we set that level of competence. And I think a lot of this comes back to defensible decision making. So everything that we do, in my day job, I'm head of resilience and risk and safety for local government. Everything that we do has to be defensible. Our decisions have to be made on the right decisions, on the right information, and on situational awareness. And I think within the profession that we really need to look at what we're doing in terms of defensible decision making. That links to how competent am I to do my job. If I have a public inquiry and the on the bench asks me, how were you competent and trained to do your job? What qualifies you to do your job? Then actually, as a member of a professional body, my credibility is there right at the start because my recognition of the training, the expertise and the membership should tell people that. So I think that the final bit for me that I want to cover is a wee bit about a resilience professional, about our knowledge, our skills, our behaviours. I had some stuff that Nancy's covered, so I'm not going to go back over that because I think you've heard that from Nancy. But I guess there's a bit about what is a professional. And I think the term resilience has become the buzzword. There's lots of buzzword, but it's become the buzzword in the 21st century, and particularly when we're looking at all the disruptions that we've got within our communities and organisations. We've adopted the term resilience professional within the Emergency Planning Society, and that's really trying to find a home for the broad range of practitioners, academics, volunteers and sectors that actually deliver right across the spectrum, because there's not one size fits all. So we feel that a resilience professional is somebody that's knowledgeable, skilled and qualified in the multidisciplinary and complex nature to be able to carry out resilience. And that's things like risk assessment, strategic thinking, communicating, leadership, collaboration, coaching, mentoring. The list goes on. And actually it tells you how complex it is to be a skilled professional in this sector. There's also the bit about being working under pressure and all of the things that come with that and demonstrating professionalism. So as a result of all of that, we have initiated 4 projects and we're nearing the completion of that and just in the consultation stage with our members. around building that professional person. And that's the framework for resilience practice and the companion guide, the code of professional conduct and the learning pathway that I mentioned earlier. All of it works in partnership with each other. They can't work in isolation, but they form the basis of the development of the resilience professional in a way that needs to then inform and evolve the profession. And I'll stop there.
Jacqui, thanks. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is emergent, it is evolving, it is complex. But the words you used about competencies and learning pathways, I was on the first Home Office Steering Committee in 1996. And I'm pretty damn sure they were on the agenda then of our first meeting. And so the question is really how, you know, I'm sure that nobody disagrees with the concept or the aspiration. I think to a large degree, why in 2021 are we still seeing this as an aspirational objective rather than something that was planted in the ground 20 years ago, which I am sure people will come to.